Good morning. We are going to be talking about plot diagrams. Now, we have already talked about plot when we talked about story elements, where we talked about protagonist, antagonist, setting, complications, also known as conflict, which we did yesterday, and plot. You'll notice plot is going to be big, and we'll talk about it in almost every work of fiction that we do, because plot is what we're summarizing. We're summarizing the events that happened in a story. So, to go a little bit in depth of plot, 5 seems to be our magic number, but there are 5 different parts of plot. Now that might seem simple because a book is pretty long, but you can kind of sort every event into one of 5 categories. So, we're going to take the classic story of Cinderella and we're going to look in a little bit more about it and break it down. So, I'm in block 4 on your screen. It could be any block. I need you to go to classwork and then scroll down to quarter 2. Now, on the very top of quarter 2 is Cinderella plot diagram. Go ahead and open that. So, in case you don't know the story of Cinderella, I have the live action version explained by my best friend, the robot, and she walks you through the story. So if you need to pause me right now so that you can give yourself a recap about the story of Cinderella, or maybe learn the story of Cinderella for the first time, go ahead and pause me. I'm going to assume that you have either paused me or you think you know the story. So, when we are talking about exposition, that's basically our introduction or the beginning. So, exposition is also called our introduction or beginning. So, where it says type here, those are the 2 things I would like you to type. Once again, if I am talking too fast, go ahead and pause me, but I will go ahead and type in with you. So it's a beginning or introduction. Go ahead and make that match on your screen. My suggestion would be to pause me because I'm going to keep going. So, in an exposition, there are 3 main things that are going to be introduced. You might not have a full introduction of them, but you will at least get a glimpse into them. The first one is going to be the main character, or just in general, the main characters or the protagonist. The other thing you're going to be introduced to is the setting, so where it is located. Oops, it's not the T setting. The setting. This is going to be the time as well as the place. We'll talk about the example in a little bit, but you might need both. A lot of things are set in current day, and they don't give you a specific time period. You're going to have to figure that out. I'm going to stand. Last but not least, the thing being introduced is going to be our conflict. Now, like I said, this is not going to be a blanket statement, here's the conflict. It's going to be subtly introduced. I'll pause it here so you guys can get it all squared away. So at this time, you should be right around caught up. We're now going to talk about specifically in the story of Cinderella. So, the protagonist of Cinderella, I'm not going to type this, so you better be paying attention. I'll do the exposition with you, however. Every other one, you're on your own typing. For this one, the protagonist is going to be Ella / Cinderella, depending on what you call her. It's going to be the prince, the stepmother, and the stepsisters, which are Anastasia and Drizella. Oops. I'll move my big head. So the setting, through the video, we don't have a specific place. We know that it is in an unknown kingdom that he is in charge of. And we do know it is set in the past. Our main conflict is our antagonist, which is going to be Lady Tremaine. So, the main conflict is that the stepmother does not like Ella and tries to punish her. Now, the conflict is not going to be Ella not being allowed to go to the ball, because the conflict is the main reason for most things the antagonist is going to do. So, it's whatever the antagonist wants that directly opposes the protagonist. For this, it's the fact that Ella's trying to have courage and be kind. But when the stepmother is consistently being mean and degrading Ella, she's finding it harder and harder to have courage and be kind. Therefore, that is our complication or conflict. Now, I want you to take this star and place it on this flat part, because this is the beginning. This is where we get the ball rolling. We're going to be introduced to a lot of things so that we can bring it back later. It's called spiraling. Think of a funnel. You start with a whole bunch of information in the beginning, and eventually it all comes together. So, it's going to be the top of our funnel. It's going to be the start of our little mountain for exposition. Now, like I said, you might want to pay attention and pause me as we go, because this is the only one I'm filling out with you guys for the Cinderella example. The rest of them, you're going to have to listen, and you can fill in those answers, but I will not type. Okay? For rising action, What is built is suspense. So suspense is that in your gut feeling that something is going to happen. It's the reason a lot of people like scary movies, is because they get this feeling where they don't know what's around every corner, they don't know what's going to happen, but they know something will. It's like when you're on a roller coaster and you're going up to the top, and as you're about to fall, you get that feeling of suspense, like, oh, it's coming, oh, it's coming, oh, it's coming. Suspense is the built-up anticipation. So you build up suspense, you build up anticipation for the big event that's going to happen. So we're going to move our star up here, just like on the roller coaster. It's when we're going up, we're going up, we're going up. It's going to happen. In Cinderella, this is going to be every instance that the stepmother looks down on Cinderella. This is going to be when Cinderella starts to lose courage, when she starts to feel sad, when she starts all of these things. She's starting to be a little bit cowardice instead of have courage or be brave and be kind. So this is when Cinderella's mother makes her basically a maid. Stepmother. This is when Cinderella's stepmother forces her to move into the attic. This is when she rips the dress that Cinderella has sewed. This is when the stepmother does not allow Cinderella to go to the ball. On the other side, this is when you start to see Cinderella have courage, as well as start to lose it. It's the back and forth of having courage, not having courage, having courage, not having courage. So having the courage to talk to the prince, having the courage to have to get away, having the courage to even make the dress and assume she's going. The rising action is where you are seeing Cinderella struggle with that decision. She's going back and forth, making up her mind about having courage and being kind. We finally see it come together when she shows the ultimate form of courage, when she directly disobeys her stepmother. And she says, this is something I want to do for me. And she goes to the ball. The climax in a story is the ultimate turning point. It's the place you can't go back from, I should say. The second Cinderella goes there, she knows her story has been changed. She now has met the prince. She now has figured out what can happen if she stands up for herself. She doesn't have to be mean, but she can still not let people walk all over her. So by standing up, she can't turn back. She's now going to stand up for herself because she has figured out she deserves it. So from this point of the story onward, there is no going back. You think of a roller coaster. When you start to go down that roller coaster, you can't shuffle back up. You're going down. So this is going to be at the top. This is Cinderella is at that ball. She might be disguised and she might have a curfew, but she decided for herself she's going. She's going to be brave. She's going to show that she has courage. And she's going to go. Now for falling action. The purpose of falling action is to show the consequences of the climax. can't spell apparently. Everything that happens because of that climax. For Cinderella, that she loses her slippers because she has a curfew. It's that her stepmother tries to blackmail her. It's that she gets locked in the tower. It's that the prince goes trying to find her. It's that all of these things that happened because she went to that ball. What happens because she went to that ball is the falling action. It's like if you dropped something, everything that falls out is the consequence of that main event. So, like I said, that's the prince falling in love with her. That's losing her slipper on the stairwell. That's the stepmother figuring out Cinderella is in love with the prince. That's the prince trying to find Cinderella by putting the shoe on everyone. It's the stepmother locking away Cinderella. It's all of the events that happened because of the climax. So we'll move that star to the fall. Now the last major bit of it is called the resolution. It's at the end. The resolution is the conclusion of the story. It's what ties everything together. You take that conflict we talked about in the beginning and you fix it. We solve the conflict. We overcome the conflict. In this case, it's whether or not Cinderella can have courage and be kind. Now, the end of the movie, the mom or stepmom, last resort says, you can't leave. And Cinderella says, I'm going. You cannot hold me here anymore. It's also taking the courage to say, I know I'm not who you expected to the prince, but you should still love me because I am the person you fell in love with, regardless of what you thought of I was, of how much money you thought I was. I am worth being loved. It's then her showing kindness and forgiving the stepmother and basically saying, you might not have been a good stepmother to me, but you are still a human being. And I understand that you must have been going through something. So having that kindness to say, I am at a better place than you. I am the bigger person. I will forgive you. You could not destroy me, but obviously you were going through something. Cinderella was able to overcome her conflict. She eventually marries the prince, and the stepmother, the stepsisters, and all of her antagonists meet their just desserts. They get what they deserve. But Cinderella maintains courage and kindness throughout. So, we're going to move the star to the end. This is that feeling on the roller coaster you get when it's like, you can finally catch your breath again and you're about to pull into the stop and you just go, that was fun. I want to do that again. Like you feel like that was an experience and it is completed. So hopefully this has helped you understand plot, because when we get into our novel units, we're going to break down the plot of the book a little bit further than we did first quarter. That being said, all of this is going to go into our so. Because you'll notice every event leads to the next. The exposition leads to the writing action. So because the exposition happened, then we can get a rising action. Because our rising action happened, we can have our climax. Because our climax happened, we can have our falling action. And because our falling action happened, we get our resolution. So I'll show you my hand. I'll make me large on your hand. I would like you to list, I'll zoom out a little bit, the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. This is what your hand should currently look like by the end of today. If you need to pause this so you can get it, that's fine. Oh, this is backwards. I'll do this. Did that help? Sorry, darlings. Go ahead and pause me here. When you are done, because we have extended due dates for anyone with a grade below a C, if you would like to work on missing work so you could bring up your grade, that would be awesome. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and we're going to go back to class. So I'll minimize me. You can have this. Make sure you turn in your Cinderella plot, turn it in, and I will see you in a little bit to talk about our government.